All right. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar this morning. My name is Saylor Howell. I'm with Omnidek, and we're pleased to introduce simplifying technology for the field for your project managers and other field personnel. So thank you for joining this morning. We're really excited to present today this topic. In my 16 years in the construction industry, in and around different software companies and working with construction, this has been a big topic. Anytime there's an event in construction technology, there's always a panel that tries to help construction companies figure out how to simplify technology for the field. Adoption is a huge issue, and so we appreciate you guys joining us today. We're hoping we'll give you some insights and some solutions to this sort of age-old problem in construction. So let's go ahead and get started. We will be recording this session, so if you'd like a copy of it afterwards, we'd be glad to shoot it over to you. So let's talk about how did we get here to this point where we're at today. The way we worked before, many years ago, when there was a ton of paper rolling around the office, that may still be your current day, but most companies would get invoices in the door, we'd get change orders, lien waivers, expense reports, receipts, whatever that might be. And it's usually up to the AP department to take those documents and to go ahead and enter them into your ERP system. So many of those, especially invoices, maybe a change order that's a high dollar amount, might need to go through a routing of approval. And there's just been a plethora of studies done by, Gartner, McKinsey Research, many companies that have looked at what does it cost to handle a paper invoice or a piece of paper in construction with all the approvals, the multiple data entry, and finally getting it into our ERP system to go ahead and pay it or process it, right? And that number is typically around $11 to $18 per piece of paper. Well, we've realized that that's an exorbitant burden on our staff and on efficiency overall, right? So many years ago, we started coming out with new applications to meet that particular need that we needed to automate. Well, that seemed great in the beginning, but what started to occur was this app overload. One department would go, the purchasing department would go find 3 applications that might meet their need. They pick the best one for the best price. They'd choose that one. Great, we have an A player application for purchasing. Now we do the same for HR, and we do the same for expenses, and we do the same for AP routing and approval. And you can see it really started to burden us with applications, frankly. So we call that app overload, in Appegeddon is a term that we use here at Omnidek. And I think it aptly describes, no pun intended, that we just built this sort of islands of software that don't really talk to each other, right? In the name of automation, but did we really get automated? So you can see here in this graph that, if we've got 18 employees and 44 apps, or switch it around, 44 employees and 18 apps, it's created 400 connections. That's 400 usernames and passwords. And when we have to manage 18 applications, we've got 18 support departments to call when there's an enhancement or an upgrade or a break. And frankly, it makes sense why a lot of project managers, especially the experienced guys out there, they don't want to spend all this time messing with these applications when it's really stealing time from job productivity, right? We get it, but it's still a problem, right? So how do we start to solve this? But let's dig into the challenges just a little bit more. So obviously tech adoption is an issue. We've got too many applications, and some of these applications will integrate or interface with our ERP system. However, there's not typically a seamless bi-directional integration, right? So many times we still have to double enter some data, which is really taking us, we're walking forward 2 steps and we're taking 3 steps back. Additionally to this, most of our communication, let's say somebody out in the field, they're short on material. They need to go to Home Depot and buy some caulk and some nails and some lumber to finish that part of the job. Well, it's a lot easier for me as a senior project manager to go to Home Depot, buy that and turn in the receipt than to enter a purchase request, route that around for approval, hope that somebody sees it and they're not on vacation and it gets back to me and it's approved. So then I can buy that material that's needed now, but not 3 days from now, right? So this has kind of created this bottleneck in construction where now we're just picking up the phone or we're sending an email. And if you're anything like me, you've got 100 emails a day coming in for things that could be better organized around that work process. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about here in Omnidek. And then finally, we've got this kind of cliche phrase, real-time reporting, that many applications boast in construction, but frankly, they're right. When I get a time collection app that integrates with my ERP system, it gives me real-time reporting on time collection if the guys are entering it on time. However, it doesn't give me real-time reporting on my entire company because it's a silo of information. So what type of impact does this have? Project delays is a big one. We don't know about the information on time. How could we make timely decisions for our projects? Finally, margin fade. Has anybody on the call ever had a change order come in at the end of the job or 3 weeks after the change order's inception? So we thought on our work in process, we thought that we had a job margin of 5%, but now it's 2. I'm sure that's not ever happened to anybody on the call, but hey, this is a big issue in construction. And so we have to attack these things. And finally, labor and material delays. It's a trickle down effect. If we don't have good systems or we don't have timely information, it's going to affect other areas of the job. So we're here to talk about the solution. The solution is not just Omnidek, but we want to get you guys thinking about what are the areas that we can improve on and how could we do that, not just plug in another application, right? So some of the opportunity today that we can begin to look at is by accelerating tech adoption. What if we had one application that could do those multiple things for the guys in the field to log into? So one support department to call, one username and password. This would change the world, frankly, in construction. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from senior project managers, even COOs, that say, we're sitting down in these company meetings on a weekly basis with the operations team in the field, and they're telling us there's just too many apps to log into. So the opportunity is we never have to enter data twice. If we have a system that can integrate with our ERP system bidirectionally, and we can also integrate it with, maybe you have an Excel spreadsheet that has inventory over here and a price list and a tool list. Maybe you have an Access database that your IT guys built in another area with some information. We can integrate with all of that. So now we're truly getting automation. Omnidek offers in-app chat that's relative to specific processes. For instance, if we're having an issue that might need a change order on the job, but we're not sure, we can fill out that particular process, that form, route it around for approval, and chat right there on the form. So somebody's getting an email right now and can log straight into the form and chat back. So instead of this 3-mile long Teams conversation or this Skype conversation about what happened this last weekend and how did it go, and then also about the change order, we can get rid of all of that. Now we've got a secure way that's relative to our work processes. And if we're using one application to collect all this data from multiple departments and multiple areas of the field, and it's easy for the guys to use, that's just going to result in faster data collection. And finally, we can get what we've been talking about for a lot of years, real-time company-wide reporting up to the minute. What's the impact? We start to really reduce project delays because we know what's happening right now and we can make those decisions. We start reducing margin fade because that change order isn't coming in at the end of the job. It was collected the day of or day after, right? And then finally, if the guys can spend less time messing with an app that's not working or there's some issue, instead of messing with these 5 different usernames and passwords, they're working simply in one called Omnidek. And so they're going to have more time to spend on the job. So what does Omnidek look like in an ecosystem in your organization? Excuse me. So here on the left, before Omnidek, like I mentioned, I have my, maybe business analytics applications. I might have Procore, my accounting system, an HR application, purchasing, what have you, and they're all communicating with your ERP, right? Well, With Omnidek, those same things, those same types of data are being collected, but it's all being done in Omnidek, and it acts sort of as a wrapper to your ERP. So now everything is in one cohesive unit, and we don't have these islands of software. So the way that we look at Omnidek is sort of like an assembly line. And in the first section here, you can see in Omnidek, we look at a lot of information or a lot of work processes in a form basis. And so all forms are drag and drop. There's no code. And if your end users can fill out a form and sign it, take a picture, drag and drop, they can fill out a form in Omnidek. Secondly, if they can approve, hold or reject, or chat around a form, that's the second step. Very, very easy to do in Omnidek. And finally, we want to monitor on that data, right, through reporting and be able to easily use reports that we can configure for the data we want to see, right? So fill out a form, approve and chat, report off of it. Once they've learned this from one work process, maybe expense reimbursement request, then once we implement a new work process, instead of having to go buy another app, we just implement a new work process in Omnidek. Everybody knows how to use it. They're trained up on it, and we don't have to train them on another application. So this really starts to become an ecosystem that is the replacement to your traditional business office. So here's a few example use cases in Omnidek, but these are just a few. We see all kinds of stuff. And frankly, we have a lot of construction companies that'll come to us and say, hey, we have a work order system that's not working well. We need a work order system, and we need it to do these 5 things that we really haven't found a work order system that can do it. Can you help? And oftentimes we're able to configure workflows and processes that can meet exactly what they need. So you can see here, we've got PTO request, daily reports, even production tracking from the field, time collection, expense reporting, even pre-qual forms and payment applications through our vendor portals. So Omnidek does offer portals as well as forms within your work process. So we'll talk about implementation strategy here in just a moment, but let's go ahead and jump into the software. So this is Omnidek, and it's a single page application, very easy to use, no code. You can see here in the middle is my inbox, and this is sort of like my Outlook inbox, but it's relative to work processes that were assigned to me. For instance, I've got some out of office requests here. I've got some expense reports, time sheets, time cards, and these were all submitted for either my approval or my input. Here on the right, I've got my forms, and these are all the forms assigned to me. You can see I've got quite a few different forms across departments here. And on the left, we've got a few buttons that help us navigate the system, but let's go ahead and start here in our marketplace. What's really great about Omnidek is you get all of these forms for free, these different work processes, and they're all by department. We've got about 150 in here, and our customers are letting us know new types of forms that they would like. We're able to template those and add them to the marketplace, and you get the benefit of them, right? So I might be in an accounting, or I might be needing something for equipment or project management, payroll. I can come in here and pick what I want. So maybe I'll come in here and say, you know what, I've got this change order form. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my library. And it's very, very easy. Once I've added that, I can go ahead and start filling it out and creating a work process around it. Super easy to do. But I'll go back here to my dashboard, and we're just going to pick on a particular form, maybe this expense report here. And I just start filling out the expense report just like I would any other form. But what's cool, what's great about this is it doesn't matter if the guys are using an iPhone or an Android or tablet, it's going to optimize to that device. So I just start filling it out, right? I pick my date. I might pick a manager. This is syncing with my Sage database here. Date of transaction, vendor. See my job tables are all synced, cost codes. And then I might select a photo. This would pick my gallery or my camera if I needed to do that. And I might put in my mileage reimbursements, what have you. And this is going to do math for me. But once I'm done here, I'll just go ahead and submit this, and it's going to follow the routing of approval that we've already set for this type of form and for that employee. But let me show you how these are built. We'll go into our form designer here, and we'll check out this expense report. And I'm going to show you some customer examples too. It's not rocket science to use Omnidek, very, very easy. So you can see here by field, we can adjust these with whichever parameters that we want. So for instance, I have all these answer types here on the left. So I might say, you know what? We need a yes or no on if a receipt was present. So I'm just going to rename this and call it receipt. So now when a PM fills out this form and clicks yes, receipt was present, I can report off of that, show me every expense report that did not have a receipt. And now we can see all of those, and we can go ahead and attack those particular ones and find the receipts, or chat to all the guys and make sure they get those in instead of having to pick up the phone, right? Well, all of these are doing math as well. If you're familiar with Excel and you know how to do some basic formulas, you can do those same things in Omnidek. You can see this Z3 here, or the Z7, B9. These are just reference fields like a row and a column, like you'd have in Excel. And I'm going to just put in my expression here, or my formula. This one plus this one equals this. So I can add up my mileage or per diem or whatever that might be. Really, really easy to do in the system. Now, if we wanted to get a little bit more complex, we can start to do this in more of a grid format. And I can build something that I want. And so literally in a couple of minutes, instead of going out and buying a new app, I can literally build the app here. So you want a time collection app, we can mimic it here in Omnidek. So this one, I might call it time. And then this first tab, I'm going to configure the tab, and I'll call the first tab time collection or time card. And then I want to add some fields to it, right? So I'm going to add, an asset right here that you can see is just, it's connecting to a list table in your ERP system or some other system that you have. So we might get employee, job, number of hours, and then maybe a text description, right? And then we could cost code that out if we needed to do that. But we started building these out, and this is how easy it is to connect this. So I'm going to call this one employee, right? So this is employee, and here's where I connect it. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to connect that to my employees in my ERP system. Now it's connected to my employees, and I do that for job and so on and so forth. So this is very, very easy to build. And now I do, another tab for per diem or production units, whatever. And we can typically push that information back into your ERP system. So you can see, let me show you a little bit more built out version of what we're just doing now. So I can go into this cluster timesheet here that somebody sent to me for approval. And let's see, Angela sent this in. It's a daily timesheet. Now on this particular one, it took us about 15 minutes to build this. All we're doing is collecting, the job data, which crew was it, maybe shift type. This was all, call the field what you want it, drag it into the form, and start collecting the data. Super easy to do. We were collecting the time here for this particular crew. You might do it on a individual basis, and we can do a check-in, check-out. We've even got a company that's working with us called Parfab, and what they do with their time collection is the guys walk into the office or into the warehouse, and they've got a facial recognition scanner that reads their face and it clocks them in. Now, Omnidek just reads the data on the back end of that facial recognition scanner, and it enters these time cards and all the information for them. Because in their employee record, we've got their craft type in the employee information. So it literally populates all of these automatically, and then go ahead, it routes around for approval, drops back into their payroll system in their ERP. On this one, we're even tracking equipment usage, pulling in a schedule of values, and tracking production units from the field for percent complete. So huge strides here that we've never been able to do in construction, not in one place like this. Now, if I got a question on, are we sure they're 25%? I was just out on the job and they just barely started work on framing. Well, maybe I need to ask that question. Framing just started. Are they really 25%? right? So now that's going to send an email to whoever's involved in this workflow of approval. So Angela, Jim, Toby, they're all going to get this message, and now they can log in and go ahead and make a message, send that back to me, and now I can make a decision to approve, hold, or reject this on the fly. Maybe I need to add somebody. Jim's out right now; he's on vacation, or Toby was sick, so I'm going to go ahead and invite a user. So let's pull Brad in here, and he's going to be an approver, and I'll invite him into this workflow. Now he can see the chat as well. So real easy to create the forms, pick a form from the library that's free, or enter the forms and approve them. Super easy to do here in Omnidek. Let's look at a couple more examples. I'm going to show you here one of our customers. This is their test site, an existing test site, but this is Caretaker Landscape in Arizona, and they've got a lot of Spanish-speaking labor. So what we've been able to do for them is create many forms that are also in English and Spanish. And a great story here, we helped them with a $300,000 SharePoint implementation. They had finally given up. It just was never ending, and they were just throwing money at the SharePoint implementation. You may be dealing with that too. They were able to ditch that and use Omnidek for what they were using SharePoint for, and also every other work process in their company. What's great about this is they hired a part-time admin to focus on process control and find areas where they could automate. What they were able to do with that part-time admin didn't have any programming experience. Well, she came in and she created one form here, and now here's all the other forms that they have. So we're looking at 60 forms here that they've created themselves. That's how easy it is to use Omnidek. So additionally, I'll go in here and they've got some inventory stuff. And for instance, this inventory transfer form, what Omnidek is going to do, it's not just pulling in lists of cost codes and GL account codes and vendors and employees and making that static. It's constantly updating and syncing. So for instance, we might go in here and for this truck 41071, we want to transfer some stuff to this other truck. But when we go in here, we've got all these parts that are specific to this truck. It might be a warehouse that you have or whatever. But if I go to one of these other trucks here, CO truck 85, there's nothing in it. That truck doesn't have any inventory. So the tables are syncing and they're reading up-to-date information off of other inventory lists or other systems that you might have. Very easy to use. Additionally, I'll show you here some of these forms here. Let me see in our safety forms. Here's one of their safety accident reports, and it's all translated into Spanish for their Spanish-speaking labor. So really easy to use for your field personnel. Now, what starts to happen is when everything is a form, it's easy to enter, it's easy to use, the guys are going to use it more often. This is the secret to tech adoption and having a holistic solution instead of an in-part solution for your company. But let me show you a couple more pieces here. Oftentimes we talk about, okay, collecting the data is fine, but many systems really bottleneck how you route documents for approval and what criteria you have to be able to route on as an option. And I've seen many construction companies go, well, let's come up with a workaround since the software doesn't quite do it the way we want. Those days are over. You do it exactly the way you want in Omnidek. So if I go to my workflow here, I'm going to just pick a particular, this is actually our system. Let me go to this one here. So I'll pick this expense report. We can go into that workflow. This one's already been built, but I'd like to show you a new workflow and just build it with you. So we'll go into the expense report. I'm going to just call this test. So we start our workflow once the form is filled out right here at start. Maybe we want a department to see that particular form first. So I'm going to go into my hierarchy node here and select which department I want. And we've set these up with you in implementation. Very easy to do. So I want it to go to my accounting department first. And then I want there to be a condition. So anything that's over a certain dollar amount or under a certain dollar amount, I want it to go to someone else. So we'll just, find amount here. There we go. and then we're going to say it's greater than $1,000, right? So anything that's greater than $1,000 is going to go to the CFO, and we would just pick that user here. So I'm going to say it's a user, and it's our CFO, Toby Flenderson, for those of you who are familiar with the office. Or, after our CFO, it's going to go to the controller. But if it's under that dollar amount, we don't need to bother the CFO with that information. So we're just going to have it go directly to the controller for approval, right? This is how hard, or how easy rather, it is to build a workflow of approval in Omnidek. And as you could see before, there's just a plethora of options on criteria you want to route by. It might be GL account code. It could be, dollar threshold. It might be a job, or even project manager, and many, many more. Very, very easy to do here in Omnidek. So you can start to build the work process that makes sense to you. But let's take a look at, okay, we get all this information in, it's coming in real time. How do we report off of this data? And what our fancy word for reporting is insights. And I've got a couple of insights here. I can build a new one based off of really anything that I want, but I'm going to go ahead and look at this one on expenses. And these are all the expenses that I have that have been submitted for all time in the company. Now, the way that we're reporting off of this, appreciate that when the old days, when we got an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, we scanned that into a system, right? And we classified that document under whatever job, the type of document, the amounts that are associated, whatever, right? And we could only search for documents in our systems, or document management systems, based on how we classified that 8.5 by 11. Now that goes away. We've truly gone paperless with Omnidek, because now we're reporting off of not that classification, but we're reporting off of all of the data that's in that document. So that's what you see here. Every field that you dragged and dropped and that the project manager filled out information into is reportable and searchable. Here's my filters for that. So you can see system fields, expenses, mileage. Those are my different tabs that I had, and I can just check whatever I want. So I'm really getting customizable reporting. But let's take a look at this here. Maybe we want to see particularly who this one is from. And I have a new employee that just came on with us full time. He was a walk-on for a while. He did great work, but we want to take a look at what his expenses are like. We've had a few employees in the past that have kind of overused their credit cards, and we've had to keep a tight eye on them. So let's look at this guy's expense reports. Now we're looking at Sally Peters, we're looking at Lisa's, and we're looking at Rebecca's. And I can total all of the expenses here, sum these up if I need to, but I want to go directly into this one. That's this one's $4,200. Man, what's going on this one, right? Let's see what's going on in this. So I can look into this report, see exactly what happened. This one might be from 3 years ago, but I can say why this charge, and now this person is going to get that chat message, and we can chat about it without me ever having to pick up the phone again, right? Now, these are all PDF. I can click this and get the PDF output. Or the way that I've massaged this data here, maybe I looked at everything by employee and by date. Now I can kick this out to Excel and massage the data even more the way that I want to, if you're comfortable more with Excel than using other systems. So maybe you don't want to do this, you want to start over. You could be doing some draw reporting, want to do an analysis on a vendor. Super easy to do here in Omnidek. Additionally, we've got something here called channels. And since we have all of this data we can search on now across departments, we're able to search in silos of data and chat around it. For instance, I've got this might be kind of like a job folder or a vendor folder, but I've got a channel here for jobs, one for this particular employee, one for this particular vendor. So for instance, A1 Electric Company, I created a channel to see every form that was ever submitted for them, or this job, Northwest Food Warehouse. Here's every form that ever referenced Northwest Food Warehouse. And I can see down here into this section, show me every form and then how many of them there were. So for instance, I've got one cluster timesheet that was submitted, one daily report, and 3 expense reports, and I can go directly into those right from here. But this is really, really helpful. For instance, we might have a piece of equipment, a new piece of yellow iron, like a backhoe from Caterpillar that costs us $180,000. It's new on the job, and we want to chat with everybody that's involved in that piece of equipment and see how it's doing. Are we maintaining, right, the equipment? So now we can start having this conversation around that piece of equipment. So really, you kind of dictate your world. All the chat, all the data collection, all the decisions of approvals are happening right now. They're not happening 3 weeks from now, like we've really been used to in the construction industry. So one more example here. Let's go into, I'm going to show you my experience when I onboarded at Omnidek. You might be looking at Omnidek going, hey, we could probably use this for some time collection. We could probably use it for expense reports or purchasing requests. Hey, that's true. But what else can you use it for? We use Omnidek at Omnidek. And frankly, this is the first company I've worked for where we're using what we sell. And that should say a lot about the system. But we use it for everything. We use it for incoming orders. We use it for customer information, for HR. And my experience at Omnidek when I came in was I filled out a new hire packet, and this has already been approved, obviously, but I want to show you a little bit of how easy it was for me to do this. So I could go in here and check my check stubs, whatever I needed to do, but I went through here and I started filling out my name and address, and then go in here and fill out my W-4. So if you have a work process where you want to embed PDFs and maybe do some DocuSign, or rather e-signing those documents, it could be a lien waiver, could be a pre-qual form or a G702, right? So I just come in here and I click this and start entering the data real easily here. Once I'm done with that, I can sign it. We can add a signature field here, just like we did here at the bottom. And this is how hard this was to do. I literally dragged and dropped a checkbox into this form, or Chris did rather, and he typed, "I hereby consent that this signature is of my own." And now once I check that, I sign it either with my finger or my default signature, and it's ready to go, time-stamped and dated. I filled out my entire work packet in about 15 minutes and then told Chris, "Hey, thanks for doing this." He immediately chatted back. We were done. There was no other conversations on phone, text, or email. I think that that's really, really powerful. It's saving a lot of companies that work with us a lot of time. And frankly, we've gone back and we've done some studies on what types of value has this placed in impact in organizations that work with us. And they've seen over a 50% reduction in email and at least a 30% reduction in the amount of applications that it takes for them to run their business. Sometimes you might be looking at your tech stack going, I don't know if we could replace any applications right now with Omnidek because we're too vested into them. Maybe we could replace one. Oftentimes a company will bring in Omnidek for one small work process, and it prevents them from having to buy new applications in the future. So the value is inherent there. With having to use one system instead of those 5, right? So one last thing here, I want to show you what is the end game here. Everybody's been talking about business analytics or BI reporting for a very, very long time. This is actually what we use at Omnidek. Since we're using Omnidek, we actually have 3 applications to run our entire company. One of those is Sage Intacct, one of those is Omnidek, and the other one is HubSpot for marketing. So this right here is Power BI. It comes with your Microsoft subscription. You might be familiar with it, may even already be using it. It really didn't cost hardly anything, but we're using Power BI to report off of everything that's collected in Omnidek. So appreciate that now that we're getting forms and processes collecting data on a day-to-day basis, and it's anytime syncing, we're able to see up to the minute reporting. Like I can see that Adam has 183 hours here for this time period. And I can watch this report for a few minutes and these numbers will start to change from the guys entering data, guys and gals. So we've got our entire company right here with data analytics. You might be working with a company like Intera or someone else who's doing BI reporting for you, but they're trying to report off of these multiple databases that you have. Now with Omnidek, it's literally just report off of my ERP, report off of everything that's an Omnidek that's covering multiple departments and maybe Procore, right? So real easy to handle that within Omnidek. So I'm going to go back here to my my PowerPoint real quick. Oftentimes when we have a demo on Omnidek and we start looking at a particular work process that a company's trying to find a solution for, they get excited about Omnidek and think about all these different things that they could use it for. But the conversation is, where do we start? It kind of could seem a little overwhelming. So what most companies that we see start with Omnidek is they pick an initial process, some ancillary process that they could apply Omnidek to very, very easily, sort of a land and expand strategy. So we might start with a simple expense reimbursement request or a work order form or a purchase request, maybe even just a simple time card, and see how Omnidek works from there. And we always see Omnidek start in one work process, and then it starts to bleed into the rest of the departments as we realize the value of Omnidek and how easy it is to use. So management can look at that, and now they've got in-house a platform that can easily implement new process improvements and not having to train the personnel on a new app. And so another metric that we've seen in our customer base is we're able to reduce the time and money that it takes to implement a new process by 90% by using Omnidek. I didn't show this today, but we can easily spin up an extranet portal. What that means is, you might want to have, need to build a vendor portal where your vendors can come in and submit pay applications, fill out and sign some pre-qual forms, lien waivers, those kinds of things. Or maybe you just have guys out in the field that you want to enter a time card. You can hand them a phone or hand them a tablet, and they've got the portal right there just to enter those forms, so they don't have to have the full application. So I can literally spin up a portal in about 5 minutes in Omnidek. Very, very easy to do. The great thing about Omnidek too is that in terms of communication, you don't have communication on the job in multiple sources now. You've got one place for secure communication within one application to move forward. So my name's Saylor Howell. Thank you guys for sitting and taking a few minutes with me to learn a little bit about Omnidek. I will tell you, we would love to sit down with you and kind of create a tailored demo around your work process. What's really been fun at Omnidek for us is we can sit down with you and whiteboard or do a whiteboard session and whiteboard your processes, the routing of approval, and whatever that might be, to go and see if it's going to work for you and be a good fit. So feel free to give us a call, go to our website and book a demo there, or you can give me a call at this information, saylorh@omnidek.com, or my telephone number here, and we'd love to spend some time with you. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. And if anybody has some questions they want to ask, we'll go ahead and attack a few of those now, and then we'll end the webinar. One second, let me unmute. All right, so everybody should be able to speak on the call that needs to ask a question. I would like to ask, what are your thoughts? Could somebody give me some feedback? If you've seen Omnidek for the first time, where are you thinking you might be able to apply that in your business?
I think most mics are muted, so well, I don't know if they have to unmute individually.
Okay. Let's see here. All right, everybody's unmuted. Or you can type a chat message if you'd like to ask a question there as well. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and tie up the webinar. I'll give 30 more seconds here just in case anybody wants to ask another question. All right. Thanks for joining the webinar. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you real soon.